Welcome back to Spooky Pasta and the second episode of our series. If you haven't heard the first one, the link is in the description. Now, let's get into our story. I'm a cop on the Navajo reservation. I investigated a killer who steals his victim's skin. By Page Turner 627, Part 2. With adrenaline still coursing through our veins, Izzy and I quickly regroup. I pull out a first aid kit from my cruiser, cleaning and dressing our wounds as best as I can. The gash on Izzy's forehead looks deep, but she brushes off my concern, her eyes filled with a determination that mirrors my own. The chilling events of the evening leave an indelible mark on our minds, but we can't afford to be paralyzed by fear. With a deep breath, I reach into the cruiser, grabbing the radio. "Mandy, this is Logan. Do you copy?" After a moment, Mandy's voice crackles through, tinged with concern. "Logan, where have you been? The station's been trying to get a hold of you. Are you okay?" I hesitate, considering how to relay the night's events. "Mandy, we've got a situation here. I need to speak with Chief Nakai immediately." There is a brief pause. "Hold on," Mandy replies, her voice wavering slightly, perhaps picking up on the urgency in my tone. After a few tense moments, the gruff voice of the police chief comes through the radio. "Logan, it's Chief Nakai. What's going on?" Taking a deep breath, I quickly explain the events with the bagays, the strange footprints, and the horrifying confrontation with what seemed like a doppelganger of Maggie. There is a long pause before the police chief responds. "Are you trying to tell me you confronted some sort of creature? That's hard to believe." "Sir," I say, my voice firm, "I know how it sounds, but both I and the FBI liaison witnessed it. This isn't a joke. People are in danger." Nakai sighs. "I've heard the legends just like everyone else, but to think they might be real. Logan, give it to me straight. How serious is this?" I don't mince words. "Sir, I think it's bad. Bad enough that we might need to initiate Dineta Shield." There is another heavy silence. Dineta Shield is a protocol meant for dire emergencies, meant to rally the community against threats that are beyond the understanding of the typical law enforcement. Finally, Chief Nakai responds, his voice heavy. "I understand. I'll need to consult with the tribal authorities, but I'll send all available officers to your location immediately. We'll set up a perimeter and make sure this thing doesn't get any further." "Thank you, Chief," I reply, relieved. Over and out. Izzy, having overheard my conversation with Chief Nakai, turns to me, her brows furrowed in confusion. "Dineta Shield? What's that?" "Dineta Shield," I begin, my voice shaky from the weight of our recent encounter, was developed in the aftermath of the COVID outbreak that devastated our reservation. It's a protocol designed for rapid response to any significant threats to the Navajo Nation. Izzy's eyes widen as she takes in the gravity of what I'm saying. "So, it's like a state of emergency?" I nod. "Exactly. It involves several steps. First, the immediate community is locked down. No one comes in, and no one leaves. Every resident is accounted for, and regular check-ins are established." Izzy shifts uncomfortably, taking in the implications. "But if we're locking down the community, that means that whatever we're dealing with," I interrupt, "is trapped inside with us. The weight of that reality hangs heavily between us. The protocol was designed to protect, but in this instance, it felt like we were sealing ourselves in with a predator." She gulps, her earlier bravado faltering for a moment. "What's the next step?" "Information dissemination," I continue. "Every household is informed of the threat, with instructions on how to protect themselves and their families. The community leaders gather to coordinate resources, ensuring that essential supplies are distributed and that everyone has access to food, water, and medicine. Izzy nods, processing the information. And after that, I hesitate for a moment, choosing my words carefully. After that, we hunt. The police, along with volunteers, form search parties. We'll scour every inch of the reservation until we find and neutralize the threat. The sun sets quickly, painting the desert in eerie shades of red. As darkness takes over, Seji transforms into a fortress before my eyes. Barricades rise at the town's entrance and exit points, with officers and volunteers standing guard, every sense on high alert. To the outside world, it's as if Seji has disappeared, cut off, silent, and bristling with tension. Within hours of initiating Dainita's shield, the heart of Seji transforms into a hive of activity. The usually quiet streets echo with the voices of the community, anxious murmurs, hushed whispers, and the occasional shouted command. The vast desert around us feels like an enclosing wall, the vastness suddenly claustrophobic. Our first challenge is reaching every household. Many of the homes in Seji are spread out, and some are located in more remote parts of the reservation. Communication often depends on word of mouth and a network of trusted community members who often spread news faster than any electronic means. Despite difficulties, word spreads quickly, with the initial information being broadcasted on local radio stations. Volunteers mobilize in droves, forming small teams to personally visit each home, ensuring that every resident heard the message. Texts are sent out, written in both English and Navajo, detailing the current situation and the necessary precautions. As night deepens, trucks equipped with loudspeakers drive through the streets, broadcasting warnings and instructions. The haunting sound of the announcements echoing through the desert is an unsettling reminder of the threat we face. The community center, a large, multi-purpose hall normally used for town meetings and celebrations, is quickly repurposed as a temporary refuge. The aim is to gather as many residents as possible in one location where they can be accounted for and monitored. By midnight, the center is abuzz with activity. Families huddle together on makeshift beds, children's eyes wide with a mix of fear and fascination. Elders whisper prayers, their voices weaving a comforting tapestry of tradition and faith amidst the unease. Temporary stations are set up, distributing food, water, and first aid. Local doctors and nurses volunteer their time, providing medical checks for those who need them. I make my way through the sea of faces, offering words of comfort and ensuring that everyone is accounted for. My presence is a familiar face for many, a reminder that they're not facing this horror alone. The thrum of anxiety is palpable, but beneath it is a stronger current, unity. The residents of Seji might be afraid, but they are determined to face the threat head-on, together. Izzy stands a little apart from the crowd, making a series of rapid-fire calls on her satellite phone. The metallic device looks out of place amidst the traditional surroundings, but I can see the importance of her task. She's trying to get outside assistance, to bring the full weight of the FBI to bear on our situation. After what seems like hours, she finally ends her last call and makes her way over to me. Her face is etched with frustration, the ever-present determination now tinged with a hint of desperation. "Logan," she says, her voice tight, "I've contacted everyone I could at the Bureau. They're concerned, of course, but Seji is remote and it's difficult for them to understand the magnitude of what we're facing. They've promised to send a team, but it will be at least a day before they arrive." I nod, the weight of her words settling heavily on my shoulders. A day might as well be a year in our current situation. Izzy continues, "On the plus side, they're willing to provide any remote support we need. They've set up a communication line directly with their Special Ops Center. We'll have access to their databases, surveillance tech, anything that can be managed from a distance." That's something, I reply, trying to sound more hopeful than I feel. With the shroud of night already blanketing Tseji, setting up a perimeter proves challenging. Using high-beam flashlights, portable lanterns, and even the headlights of parked cars, officers and volunteers manage to establish checkpoints and barriers. It's an impressive feat, especially given such short notice and vastness of the reservation. But even as I gaze out over the barbed wire barriers and makeshift checkpoints, I feel a pit in my stomach. The dark desert night, usually filled with the beauty of stars and the gentle chirp of cicadas, was now cast in an eerie, unsettling quiet. The sheer vastness of the reservation made the idea of a nighttime manhunt daunting and dangerous. The desolate terrain, full of deep canyons, rocky outcroppings, and treacherous sand dunes, was a landscape that promised to swallow up the unprepared. "What do you think?" Izzy asked, surveying the edge of town where officers and volunteers were stationed. They were equipped with floodlights, radios, and assault rifles, casting long shadows in the sparse moonlight at my side, my mind working overtime. A search now would be too risky. The darkness gives whatever that creature is an advantage. We'd be going in blind. She nodded in agreement, her lips set in a grim line. The FBI's surveillance equipment will help, but it's not foolproof. Infrared and thermal imaging can pick up body heat, but the desert night cools rapidly. And if this thing can shapeshift or mimic, we might not even recognize it on camera. A heavy realization dawned. Our enemy was not just elusive, but potentially invisible in plain sight. The thought of that creature hiding among us, waiting for its next opportunity, sent shivers down my spine. "We need to hunker down for the night," I said. The community center was a hive of activity. Children were herded to the center of the large hall, surrounded by parents and grandparents who whispered reassurances. Makeshift barriers were erected at the entrances, with men and women from the community taking shifts to stand guard. The aroma of strong coffee permeated the air, a silent acknowledgement that many wouldn't be getting any sleep tonight. Despite the imminent threat, some residents, overwhelmed by the day's events, find solace in each other. Elders tell stories of the old times, blending myth with history, grounding the scared souls in the traditions of their ancestors. As the hours wear on, a weighty stillness envelopes the community center. The murmurs and whispers from earlier in the evening give way to the sound of soft snoring and the occasional restless shift of someone turning over in their makeshift bed. I can sense the fatigue pulling at the edges of my consciousness, urging me to close my eyes and find respite in sleep. But the sense of duty, the weight of responsibility, keeps me on edge. Izzy and I sit side by side on cots we've set up near a corner of the center. I can see the strain of the day evident in the lines of her face, the tiredness reflecting in her blue eyes. We keep each other awake, sharing stories, thoughts, and speculations about the creature that has thrust our world into chaos. Our conversations are hushed, our voices barely above whispers, as we try not to disturb those around us. My eyelids grow heavy, and I can feel the weight of exhaustion settling in. My head dips, chin almost touching my chest, and I jerk awake, feeling a rush of adrenaline as if I've been caught off guard. It's a brief respite, but moments later, my body betrays me again, my consciousness threatening to slip away. And then it happens, a sound pierces the quiet, jolting me to full wakefulness. It's eerie, otherworldly, and unlike anything I've ever heard. It's as if the very air is vibrating, sending chills down my spine. Izzy is on her feet immediately, her hand instinctively moving to the sidearm holstered on her hip. We exchange a glance, a silent agreement passing between us. Together, we follow the haunting sound, trying to locate its source as we move through the center. I notice that many are still asleep, their rest undisturbed by the chilling noise. But those who are awake wear expressions of fear and recognition, their eyes wide and filled with dread. The haunting sound grows louder, more insistent, and I can't shake the feeling that it's beckoning us. We navigate through the sleeping masses, moving towards the source of the noise. As we get closer, I recognize the voice, though it's imbued with an otherworldly quality I've never heard before. It's Chester Nez, the oldest member of our community and one of the last surviving code talkers, the heroes of World War II who used the Navajo language as an unbreakable code against the Japanese. The weight of history and wisdom rests upon his shoulders, and to see him in this state is unnerving. He sits upright on his cot, eyes glazed over, chanting cryptically in Navajo. The words are ancient, rhythmic, and they seem to resonate with the very air around us. Around him, the few who are awake stare in shock, some with hands over their mouths, others whispering prayers. This isn't the Chester they know. This is something else, something deeply unsettling. Izzy and I approach Lonnie, Chester's granddaughter, who stands a few feet away, her face pale and eyes wide with alarm. "Lonnie," I call out softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's happening to him?" She looks at me, her eyes shimmering with tears. "I don't know, Logan," she replies, her voice trembling. "He was sleeping peacefully, and then he just started chanting. I've never heard him speak those words before." Izzy kneels beside Chester, listening intently to the chant, trying to decipher any meaning. "It sounds like an ancient ritual," she murmurs, "but I can't make out the words." The room seems to grow colder as Chester continues his chant, his voice growing louder and more forceful with every word. I try to catch fragments of his recitation, searching for any discernible meaning. Among the rapid flow of Navajo words, a phrase catches my attention. "Hae ye naldlushiai, ye yistego by Hozuji." Izzy, looking bewildered, turns to me. "What is he saying?" I whisper, trying to keep my voice steady. He says, "Beware the one who goes on all four. The skinwalker is here." Izzy's face turns ashen. "Skinwalker?" Before I can answer, the lights in the community center abruptly go out. Total darkness envelopes us. The air becomes thick, charged with tension and fear. The faint glow from a few cell phones casts eerie shadows on the walls, their illumination swallowed by the vastness of the room. The faint, limited light from scattered cell phones can't pierce the consuming blackness. Every sense is heightened, but sight has betrayed us. A cacophony of fear fills the void, the sharp inhalation of breath, the quiet mutterings of prayers, the stifled sobs of children. And then, from the deep pockets of the enveloping darkness, there's a new sound. The soft, almost inaudible patter of something moving, creeping closer. The silence that follows is stifling, oppressive. Each one of us strains to hear, to discern any hint of movement, to prepare for whatever is about to happen. But all that meets our ears is a faint scraping, like nails on a chalkboard, only more organic. It's a maddening, sinister sound, dragging itself inch by inch, coming from multiple directions at once. Chester's chanting has ceased, but now a different, chilling voice, dripping with malice, hisses out, "Hazuji-I Sauce City-I," a mimicry of Chester's warning. Suddenly, a heart-stopping scream pierces the air, followed by another, and then another. The terror in those screams is palpable, contagious, setting off a chain reaction of panic throughout the room. As if in response, a chorus of guttural, alien sounds rises up, surrounding us. The predator, or predators, have infiltrated our redoubt. "Stay back," I shout, brandishing my weapon, trying to pinpoint a target in the disorienting gloom. My voice cracks with a mix of determination and fear. Another scream, closer this time, is cut short with a grotesque gurgling sound. "Logan, where are you?" I hear Izzy shouting and I reach out, desperate to find Izzy, to ground myself in the chaos. My fingers graze something warm and wet. I pull back instinctively, wiping my hand on my shirt, trying not to think about what I might have touched. The cacophony is deafening. Cries for help, shouts of warning, the terrible sounds of struggle, and overlaying it all, that inhuman hissing, mocking and gleeful. A beam of light suddenly slices through the darkness, a flashlight, wielded by someone brave or desperate enough to reveal themselves. In its glow, a scene from nightmares. Twisted, shadowy figures, half human, half beast. Their skin a mottled, shifting mass, moving with unnatural speed and grace. Their eyes, voids of endless hunger, lock onto the light's source, and then they pounce. The beam wavers and then falls, casting eerie, dancing shadows before plunging us once again into darkness. Another scream, quickly silenced.